The Kim Hellberg era is off and running with a victory as Boro came from behind for the first time this season to win. What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Project Boro, where today we are here to discuss a winning start for Kim Hellberg as Boro boss, as he came in and he saw his side do something for the first time this season, come from behind to win a game by 2-1, beating Derby County and returning back to second place in the Championship on a day to which a lot of our rivals lost. Boro did, in the end, take advantage of the opposition, the other results, and have got ourselves back into a decent position. And quite honestly, I think for Kim Hellberg and all the circumstances around this game, obviously it being his first game is one. The fact that he's only really had 2 days of training with the team is another. And I think with the amount of injuries that we are accumulating at the moment, it is, I think it was more important today that he just got the result more than anything. I think the result was primary, the performance was secondary, albeit, of course, you still want to see a decent performance. I think just to get Kim Hellberg off and running as Boro boss with a win, it just creates that little bit of positive momentum for him and for everyone involved, and it gives everyone a massive, massive boost going in to the upcoming relentless run of fixtures that Boro have between now and the end of the year. Plus, getting at the Riverside, it's a place we want it to be a fortress, and it was a tough defeat to take midweek against Coventry. It would have been awful to have lost back-to-back games at home at the Riverside, and it wouldn't have been a great way for the bubble to burst for the new manager. We had a fantastic tifo at the start of the game. Got to credit Red Faction for that. It's the first time we've ever seen anything like that at the Riverside. That was absolutely awesome. A brilliant display. Everything was there. I guess for it to, equally go wrong and the bubble be burst, but you just want to carry all of this positivity, get a result against a team in form in Derby County, and hopefully we can kick on from here, because it was only 3 wins in 11 leading into this game, and the thought of it going any further, 3 wins in 12, you at any point worrying that Boro are going to drop into the reaches of the teams below, and then obviously you're then looking at playoffs and then maybe even mid-table, given how tight the league is. So we've pulled away from the rest, got a big win for our new head coach, and everyone can now look forward. And there were certainly some big calls to make going into this game. The starting 11 caught me completely off guard. I think it did a lot of Boro fans. I think there were some really brave decisions made by Kim Hellberg with the 11, but I think we forced into some selection. Some of the selections because of the amount of injuries that we are starting to accumulate, which is a real worry, a real area of concern, especially at the back. Boro have always, for what feels like forever now, had a shocking record with centre-halves being injured, and it's only getting worse. We went to a back four, back from a 5 to a 4. We had to, I think, pretty much because we just do not have the players to essentially play a back 5 now. And yeah, some big calls in there. Obviously, Matt Targett had to come in because, Luke Ayling injured for this one. We don't know what's happened there. Aidan Morris also injured. He come off at half-time against Coventry, so that meant we couldn't slip Alan Brown into defence. So Matt Targett had to start at left centre-half. You had Alfie Jones alongside him as Dale Fry, still nowhere to be seen. And then, for the first time in almost 2 years, Alex Bangura made a league start for the Boro. We've not seen him since the Chelsea League Cup semi-final first leg almost 2 years ago. And I'm going to get to Bangura a little bit later, but it was a big, big bold call for the manager, for Hellberg, to put him straight in from the start. As I said, Hackney and Brown had to play together because of the other midfield injuries that we had, and then because we were forced into a 4, we had to return to the 4-2-3-1, which unfortunately meant Bergzog on the left, Whittaker on the right. interestingly, Sonjay Hansen given a start. I don't know how many starts he's had for Boro. It's not been many this season. A fringe player, you could say, of recent weeks, but thrown straight in over the likes of Nipan, Strelitz and McGree in behind Tommy Conway. And, well, the Hellberg era couldn't have got off to a worse start because Boro were behind within 2 minutes. And, yeah, it was a freakish start. We were caught cold completely. You know, the ball was played forward. It was flicked on by Salverson, I think it was. Boro's defensive line was just absolutely all over the place. The back four were just in completely different positions from one another, and we were just caught cold. And that was one of the things that I think we were all worried about when looking at Hellberg's Hammarby side and what he's done in the past. You know, he does like his teams to play with a relatively high line. Boro were pushed up a little higher in this game, I thought, and we were caught out instantly. I mean, the flick over the top, it's really, really clever. It definitely catches Boro's defence off guard, and we were simply caught out cold. Alfie Jones on his heels, couldn't quite recover, wasn't as sharp enough as Agiman, who was an absolute nightmare, by the way. He was a menace for Derby, all first half especially. A player I was really, really impressed with. He runs in behind and finishes brilliantly to the left of Sol Bryn, and you worried from minute one because, well, as I said, Boro have not come from behind to win a game in, well, all season essentially. And I was thinking during the game, when was the last time we actually scored first in a game? You know, we conceded first here, we conceded first against Coventry, conceded first against Oxford. I think we took the lead against Birmingham, we did, and it always is the way when Boro seemingly go ahead in games, we find a way to win. When we concede first, we find a way to lose, but we conceded first against Leicester, same against Wrexham, same against Watford. The whole run that Boro have had since that really good start has pretty much contained a similar theme. We go one goal down, and then we struggle. And you saw it unfold right in front of our very eyes once again, because Derby got their early goal. You just knew from that moment on, it's a John Eustace side. They're a big side. They're going to sit in and they're going to defend hard. And, you know, Boro have showed us nothing this season to suggest that we're any good, really, at breaking down a low block defence who parked the bus. And we've not seen Boro win from behind yet this season. So things looked pretty bleak from the get-go, and the first half really didn't improve all that much from there. I saw a couple of promising moments from Boro that gave me reason to be a little bit optimistic, but to be honest, the first half was rough. The first 20 minutes was horrendous, to be honest with you. I mean, we just couldn't get a grip of the game at all. We couldn't get a grip of it, we couldn't control it, and well, the game was played to the tune of Derby County, essentially. It was exactly what they wanted the game to be. They got their goal. They were defending really hard, defending really well. Boro just couldn't get going, really. We were quite poor in possession, and Derby were just getting set pieces after set pieces, corner after corner after corner, throw-in after throw-in after throw-in, and I think there was a period to which they had 5 successive corners, just one after the other, and it felt like a second goal was just coming at any opportunity. We just could not get a grip of the game at all, and it felt like it was being played to the tune of Derby. Everything that, you know, the game was shaping up in exactly the way that they were wanting it to, and Boro were just breaking down in the final third, trying to, you know, thread the Ivan needle at times, and we were also very, very open on the counter. I was really, really worried that every time we turned the ball over, which was happening quite a bit, we looked so suspect and so open on the counter-attack. You just felt like Derby were going to score from there. It just felt like a second Derby goal was coming, and maybe a better team would have finished us off. But yeah, as I said in my preview, it was clear to me, looking at Derby's underlying numbers, their lack of XG and lack of overall creativity, their biggest threats, just because of the size of their team, was going to come from set pieces, throw-ins, crosses, and they had so many in that first half. I was almost waiting for the second goal to go in, but it didn't. And Boro, to be fair, as I say, we had moments. There were a few promising signs that I saw. I definitely think Hellberg has recognised that, you know, whipping in lofted crosses from deep is useless when we've got no physical presence in the box. I did notice we were getting to the byline a lot more, and cutting back low balls into the box, which certainly was much more fruitful for us than what we've been trying to do in recent times. I thought the fullbacks really helped in that. Bangura definitely did. We've not had a real pacey left back for a long time now who can really get down the side, get beyond his fullback, and is left-footed for a start. Matt Targett's not too bad, but he's not the quickest. Silvera always wants to come in on his right foot. Bangura actually got down the left and got to the byline a few times and put a few decent balls in the box that caused Derby a little bit of chaos. There was one that was deflected over the top that was just behind Alan Brown. If he was stood a yard back, he had a tap-in into the back of the net. The big one came when it was crossed back in. Callum Britton on his left foot takes the shot, hits the bar, drops down onto the line and does not cross the line. That was the closest Boro came. So, Bergzorg had another one from across. I definitely think we got into some good areas both down the right and the left-hand side and put in much more effective crosses in than what we have done in recent times, which was definitely good to see. And I also thought Hansen was a huge positive in that first half. He was the bright spark, undoubtedly. I find it very, very interesting and telling that Hansen has not started at all under any of the head coaches we've had this season. I say head coaches plural, which is crazy, isn't it? We're in November. Head coaches. But under Vivash and Edwards, he was an impact player at best. And when Hellberg come in and we were all looking at his previous teams, I think a lot of people landed on Hansen as the sort of player that would suit a Hellberg team, the sort of profile of player Hellberg would like. And I think it's very telling that straight away Hellberg was like, yeah, get in, I'm dropping you straight in. Now maybe it was down to injuries, maybe it was down to something else, but he did say after the game, Hellberg, he's aware of players who've not played, he's aware of the situation, but it does very much seem like he's just picked his team based off of the 2 days of training he's seen, and he said it about Bangura. Trained well, put him straight in. Hansen must have trained well, must have liked the look of him, put him straight in. Clearly Hellberg, although he did say, he's willing to gradually make changes and isn't wanting to lose the good of what Boro have done so far, it's obvious already. He is, he's not looking too far in the past. He's using what he's seeing now in training, and he's making calls straight away, bold calls. And I think the addition of both Hansen and Bangura from the start was definitely a bright spark in that first half. But Boro still didn't really test the goalkeeper enough and create all that much. The game was really end-to-end, really open. We were allowing Derby to have us exactly where they wanted us, and I think they'll be quite disappointed they never got a second in that first half, because I think had they, the game would have been over. However, credit to Kim Hellberg, because he made changes in the second half that I definitely think helped. He brought on David Strelitz, he brought on Riley McGree. McGree was absolutely excellent, and it might have been partly down to game state, but Boro absolutely dominated the second half. Derby didn't get out once. I mean, you can see the match momentum here, the definition of dominance, and I think this was more of what a Kim Hellberg team looks like. He talked about control. He talked about having all of possession, controlling the game, creating chances. Although I still wouldn't say we were at our absolute creative best in the second half, it was pure dominance. If you want to look at the XG from one half to another, Derby did not muster a single thing in the first half. Their first half XG was 0.92. That made up their whole XG, because they did not have anything in the second half. You'll see here, first half XG, Boro 0.74, Derby 0.92, second half, Boro 0.64. Derby, absolutely nothing. They didn't have a shot. They didn't have a shot on target. They mustered only 62 accurate passes in the second half. They did nothing. I don't know what their corners and set pieces were like in the second half compared to the first, but yeah, we were giving Derby every opportunity in the first half to score the goals they wanted, to play to their strengths. Second half, it was the opposite. They were camped in their defensive third all game, and it was all Boro. And I think eventually we did get what we deserved. Now, don't get me wrong, still, I think there were times in the second half where we needed to move the ball a lot quicker. we still showed signs that, of lethargy and, being a bit ponderous on the ball. And, the conditions were tough. And again, this was far from, the ideal starting 11 for Boro due to the injuries. But there was still the same old problems. The passing was a little bit off at times. We were a little bit slow in the build-up. You're just willing Boro to be a little bit sharper and quicker with the ball. But I do think, just down to our second half dominance, we were more than worthy of at least a point. And I think we got what we deserved. And, we had a couple of free kicks that the keeper had to save. We got into some really good areas. We finally got the equaliser. And, well, I didn't expect it to be from a set piece, because I thought in any set piece crossing scenario, they were going to just eat up everything that came into their box. And I think they'll have been massively disappointed to concede from a corner. But they marked zonally Derby, which is a surprise. And that allowed Matt Targett to time his run to perfection, get a great contact on the ball, and head it into the back of the net. And me and Johnny were sat there watching the game, as we always are, and we both thought, if Boro get one, there's a high chance we'll get two. And we said at half-time, this game's probably only going to end one of two ways. It's going to be a Derby 1-0 win, and it'll be a second half of frustration to which Boro just can't break them down, or it'll be 2-1, because we'll get one, and then we'll get another. And thankfully, that is exactly what happened, because 9 minutes after Matt Targett got Boro level, we made a couple of more changes. Kali Sen came on, very good energy and pressing from the front, which is exactly what I think is, one of his strengths, one of the biggest things he offers the Boro at the moment. Nipan came on as well, and yeah, Morgan Whittaker scores again. What's that? His third in 3? He's gone from not scoring in his first 20-plus Boro appearances, and he's got 5 already this season. And fair play to him, I know there'll be a lot of people criticising Whittaker's performance in the first half, misplaced passes. No one played well in that first half, barring maybe Hansen and Bangura. So I'm not going to pick out Morgan Whittaker's performance first half, for being particularly poor, because I think he was just one of a pretty poor team in the first half. Like everyone else in the second half, performances picked up, and he cuts in on his left. He puts a cross shot. Only he'll know the truth. He'll say it's a shot, I'm sure. But he puts it into that corridor, that perfect corridor of uncertainty, as it's called. I didn't want to say that because it's a bit of a cringy cliche. But the corridor of uncertainty, he puts it perfectly between defence and goalkeeper. The defence can't get anything on it. The goalkeeper doesn't want to commit, and it nestles into the bottom corner. And yeah, it's a great moment for him. Another goal for Whittaker, top goal scorer, which is mental for Boro. And we do come from behind. We see the job out. We manage the game quite well towards the end, and we do get the win. And yeah, it's huge. Listen, again, performance-wise, I think there was a lot to like at times. Also, a lot of things that I'm sure Kim Hellberg will be looking at and will be definitely wanting us to improve on. As I say, very open on the counter first half, giving them way too many set pieces and giving them basically giving them the game they wanted in the first half. And plus the goal that we conceded was really, really poor. But I think the level of control and dominance we showed second half is definitely a good platform to build on. And if we can just speed up our attacking play, speed up our passing, and maybe find the right blend up front when it comes to the forwards, hopefully we'll turn that dominance into more chances and more goals. Because as I say, I thought Bangura down the left gave us so much width and pace. And I thought Hansen, until he went off, I hope it's not another injury, although it didn't look great, he definitely gave us something extra in that 10 position. And it was also great to see Riley McGree come on second half alongside Hayden Hackney as a sort of second central midfielder, playing a little bit deeper than what we're used to seeing from McGree. But he just controlled the game when he came on. Riley McGree was absolutely exceptional. And I've pretty much ran through my thoughts on the lineup there and then. So yeah, in terms of the performances, I thought after the initial goal that we conceded, I do think the back four deserves a lot of credit because they're a makeshift back four. They had to defend a lot of crosses, a lot of throw-ins, a lot of set pieces. I think they did well, all things considered. I've already mentioned Bangura, of course. I thought Hackney definitely improved second half. I think he got both assists, actually, in the end, did Hayden Hackney, which is great for him. And as I said, yeah, Whittaker, I thought, much better second half. Hansen definitely played his part. I guess the only players who we didn't really see much of, Bergzorg, as I've said before, I'll say again, an impact player for me, didn't really offer as much. And unfortunately, we never saw much of Tommy Conway other than the usual sort of effort and endeavour and work rate, which is absolutely welcome. But yeah, didn't really get any opportunities to end his goal drought today, unfortunately. But yeah, Sen was good off the bench. And also, young Archie Baptiste come off the bench, which was interesting. A centre-back who actually gave us a bit of height in that second half. And to be fair to him, he come on, he was told to sit at the heart of a back three, win his headers, and stop Derby from getting an equaliser. And he did exactly that. He won a lot of big headers. And it was really good to see one of our young lads come on and play a part. Because I don't think we've seen enough of that. I know we've maybe not had room for some of the youngsters on the bench in recent weeks because we've had a full squad fit. But to see him come on, come off the bench, play a part in seeing out the win and seeing him fist pumping at the end in front of the south stand and really geeing up the north stand later on in the game, really, really good to see that as well. So, yeah, some good stuff, but a lot to build on as well. The main thing, though, as I say, is that Boro are now up to second in the Championship. Of course, Coventry won again. Of course, they came from behind. I don't even want to focus on Coventry all that much. I mean, we should just start the league from second. So Boro are top. Boro are top of the league, everyone, in terms of, well, the competitive league anyway, because Coventry have gone. They play Ipswich next week, by the way, which is a juicy game in itself. But yeah, it was a big one for Boro because pre this weekend, Boro were only 6 points clear of Leicester in 15th. And I made a TikTok about this, and feel free to visit my TikTok page, link tree in the description, just how congested the league was and how a good run of results can transform your season. We've seen teams in the bottom half getting to the playoffs near enough from a good run of form. Derby were one of them, 6 wins in 7, but equally we've seen a couple of teams who, after a few bad results, have dropped like a stone. Charlton are probably one of them, you could say. And I think it just, with how many games there are, thick and fast, you can gain a lot of ground on your rivals in a very quick space of time in this part of the season. Equally, you can drop like a stone, and I was really worried with the run of games Boro have got coming up, and the form we were in, 3 wins and 11, we might start to see Boro drop quite a bit. So to get that win is massive, and so many teams who weren't too far behind us lost. Stoke, who were above us, lost. Ipswich lost. Obviously, Derby were a team in form, lost. Wrexham drew. Birmingham drew. A lot of teams like Southampton, who you thought were starting to motor, lost. So, yeah, massive for us. I know that there's a lot of teams who've jumped into the playoffs once again, Preston, Bristol City, Hull, etc. But Boro went from being 6 points from 15th before today. We're now 6 points clear of Ipswich in 8th. So a big step today, and I hope we can kick on from here on in, and Kim Hellberg's era can pick up pretty quick with a good run of results. But I just hope we get bodies back. I really hope we can see maybe Ayling, Fry come back. I don't know what the injury to Luke Ayling is. Aidan Morris as well. I'm hoping Hansen's injury wasn't too bad as well, because yeah, we are starting to get down to the bare bones in certain areas of the pitch. So fingers crossed a lot of them lads can get back and we can start getting players back as opposed to losing them. But yeah, big win, back into second, a good little gap to the teams both in the playoffs and outside of them. Let's hope we kick on from here on in. Next up, Hull City on Friday night. That's going to be a massive game. They are scoring for fun. They're equally conceding goals pretty much for fun. I think they've got the worst or second worst defence in the league. So they have very open games, and I do think that could play into Boro's hands on one hand, but equally it could be a problem on the other. They've just went to Stoke and won. They're a team who are playing rather well at the moment and are creating quite a lot. So I think it's going to be an open game, and it might be a case of who is the more clinical on the day and who just takes their chances, because I think both teams might get quite a few. So, yeah, I'll be back to preview the Hull game at some point this week. I am going to the Hull game as well, so as long as I've got a good view at the game and all is well, and I don't get drenched like I have done at what feels like each of the last 10 Boro games I've been to, hopefully I can get a match day vlog sorted for you guys, and then we'll be back to review it over the weekend. And with Boro being one of the first teams to play, a result on Friday would be nice. If we could get 3 points and then stick our feet up and enjoy the weekend, that would be nice. So yeah, that's to come later on this week. I know we have mentioned a few times that we have been gearing up to do a podcast on Kim Hellberg with Chris. We want to get Rob Law on as well. At the moment, we just can't quite get our schedules to line up, so we're still hoping to get that together and hopefully get a podcast sorted for you guys as soon as we can to discuss Hellberg and I guess our first impressions of him as well. Hopefully Rob, Chris and my schedules can line up and we will still be able to get that to you this week. No promises, but keep your eyes peeled just in case that drops. But until next time, like the video if you've enjoyed it, subscribe for much more Boro content, as well as leave me your thoughts in the comments below with your thoughts, whether you're a Boro fan, Derby fan or neutral. And until next time, take care guys, and I'll see you all in the next one.